She had been sitting next to the man for 11 minutes before she decided she was not going to let it go. Most people would have. Most people would have shifted slightly, reclaimed whatever space was left, and moved on. Sloane Merritt was not most people. And that armrest had been hers first. The red-eye from LAX to JFK was 3/4 full. The cabin already dark, most passengers already asleep or pretending to be. Outside the small oval window, there was nothing but black sky and the faint glow of clouds 30,000 feet below. Inside it was the kind of quiet that only exists on late-night flights, the low hum of engines, the occasional rustle of someone adjusting a blanket, the soft click of the seatbelt sign going off. Sloane had her laptop open on her tray table. Her coffee had gone cold 2 hours ago, and she had 17 browser tabs open, all of them telling her the same thing in 17 different ways. The client she had flown to Los Angeles to meet had canceled the contract. By email, at 11:47 in the evening. Not a call, not a text. An email, 4 sentences long. The 4th sentence being a wish for her future success that she found particularly difficult to read. She was 28 years old and sitting in a middle seat on a red-eye back to New York, and she had just lost her last client. She was not going to cry about it on the plane. She had a policy about that. The man in seat 12A had been there when she boarded, already settled the way men like him are always already settled. A folder of documents on his lap and a Mont Blanc pen tucked behind his ear. Charcoal suit, no tie, the posture of someone who has never once questioned whether he belongs in a room. His elbow had moved onto the armrest 4 minutes ago. Firmly, without asking, her elbow was already there. She had not moved. He had not moved. 3 full minutes had passed, and she had decided she was done being reasonable about it. She said quietly, without looking up from her screen, "You are on my half." He did not look up either. "There are no halves," he said. "It is one armrest." "Shared means divided," she said. "Meaning whoever needs it, more uses it," he said. She turned then. He had dark eyes and a clean jawline, and the specific expression of someone who has not been told they are wrong in a very long time. "And what makes you think you need it more?" she asked. He looked at her for the first time, fully, like she was something worth actually seeing. "I do not think," he said. "I know." She held his gaze for 2 full seconds. "That," she said, "is the least convincing argument I have heard all year. And I have heard some truly bad arguments this year." He almost smiled. Almost. She turned back to her screen. So did he. The armrest remained exactly as contested as it had been. A small cold war at 30,000 feet. And neither of them acknowledged it again. For approximately 4 minutes. Then she heard it. He had one earbud in and was speaking quietly into a call, the volume just high enough that the quiet cabin carried it 2 or 3 rows in any direction. She caught 3 words. Trailing indicators irrelevant. She heard it. She processed it. She could not let it go. Trailing indicators are only irrelevant if you're not paying attention to what they are trailing, she said. He pulled the earbud out and looked at her. "I was not talking to you," he said. "You were talking loudly enough that anyone in a 3-row radius was in the conversation," she said. "And you decided to join," he said. "You said something wrong," she said. He closed the folder, very slowly, the way a man sets something down carefully when he's about to use both hands. "Explain," he said. So she did. She had caught enough fragments of his call to piece together the scenario he was analyzing, something about a liquidity position in a volatile portfolio, and she walked him through precisely where the logic broke. No notes, no hesitation. Fluently, the way people speak when they have lived with a subject long enough that it is not knowledge anymore. It is instinct with evidence underneath it. He listened without expression. When she finished, the pause that followed lasted exactly long enough to mean something. "Your model assumes stable liquidity," he said. "That assumption collapses in the scenario I was analyzing." "Then the scenario is the problem, not the model," she said. "Or the model is incomplete," he said. "Or you are applying it incorrectly," she said. He leaned back. She leaned slightly forward. The armrest between them was, for the moment, completely forgotten. They argued for 18 more minutes, about probability modeling and market behavior and whether instinct has any valid place in investment strategy. He was sharp. She was sharper. He knew things she had not considered. She said things that made him pause. Not the polite pause of someone waiting to respond, but the real pause of someone actually recalibrating. It was the most intellectually alive Sloane had felt in 4 months. Then the seatbelt sign clicked on for light turbulence, and the flight attendant walked the aisle, and the moment broke the way those moments do, cleanly and without ceremony. They did not speak again. She fell asleep somewhere over Nevada, which she never does on planes. When she woke, her coffee was gone, and the armrest was empty, and he was reading again, the folder open, the pen back in his hand. She noticed, in the dim cabin light, that he had circled something on the second page of his document. Something new, something small. She could not read what it said. The plane landed at JFK at 5:43 in the morning, and they deplaned in silence, the whole aircraft filing out into the gray early corridor, and she was 3 people behind him in the jetway. She watched him walk, purposeful and unhurried, and she thought, "I will never see that man again." She thought that. She was wrong. And some quiet part of her, the part she does not usually listen to, already knew she was wrong, even then. Here is what you need to know about Sloane Merritt. She grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, the daughter of a high school math teacher and a woman named Ruth who kept the household accounts in color-coded notebooks. One for every category: groceries in blue, utilities in green, savings in red. Because Ruth said red was the color that made you pay attention. Numbers were the Merritt family language. Precision was a form of love. Sloane was good at school the way some people are good at breathing, naturally and without needing to announce it. Full scholarship to NYU. Graduated top of her class in applied economics. Moved to Manhattan at 22 with 1 rolling suitcase and a Kindle loaded with every financial analysis text she could find, and started building something careful and deliberate and hers. She was going to be fine. By every objective measure, she was going to be fine. And then she met Preston Wolfe. Preston was 4 years older and already working in finance and charming in the specific way that finance guys are charming when they are trying to be. Which is to say, he made you feel like the smartest person in the room by agreeing with you until the moment he needed to stop. He was handsome in a forgettable way, and interesting in a way that took time to realize was borrowed from other people. But he made Sloane feel something she had not felt before. He made her feel like her intelligence was not something to quietly manage around other people's comfort. He seemed to celebrate it. He asked her questions and listened to the answers. She believed him. They were together 4 years, engaged for 1. During the last year of their engagement, she built something she had been developing in her mind for a long time. A risk analysis model for small-cap investment portfolios. A proprietary methodology that accounted for trailing market indicators in ways that existing models did not. She worked on it every evening and every weekend. She documented everything. She saved every version. The plan was simple. Preston had the investor contacts. She had the model. They would launch it together, equal partners, both names on everything. 3 weeks before the wedding, she was looking for a document on his laptop and found the investor presentation instead. Already submitted, already in front of 3 institutional funds, her model, her diagrams, her language, restructured just enough to blur the original source. Her name was not on it. She sat very still for a long time looking at the screen. Then she closed the laptop. Then she opened it again and read every page of it, slowly and completely. She confronted him that night. He told her she was being hysterical. He said her contribution was supportive. He said the model was collaborative. He said she would not understand the business side of it anyway. That last sentence was the one she has thought about most in the 2 years since. Not because it was the cruelest thing he said, but because it was the most revealing. He had not stolen from her in spite of valuing her. He had stolen from her because he never valued her at all. She called off the wedding. She called the investors directly. 3 of them politely said they were already in process with Preston's pitch and could not speak with her. The 4th never called back. She moved out of their apartment on a Saturday. She was on Danica's couch in Brooklyn by Sunday night. Danica Reyes was her college friend, 5'2" and nobody's pushover. A paralegal who showed up at Preston's building at 8 in the morning to help carry boxes and spent the entire time quoting the 48 Laws of Power at contextually inappropriate moments. Law 15, Danica said, carrying a lamp down the stairs. Crush your enemy totally. I am not crushing anyone, Sloane said. I am leaving. Leaving is the first step, Danica said. Sloane put her boxes in storage. She freelanced. She rebuilt, slowly, methodically, the way her mother did budgets, line by line. By the time she gets on the flight from Los Angeles, she has rebuilt enough to breathe, but not enough to feel safe. She's had 3 clients in 2 years. She's down to 1. She's not telling anyone how close to the edge she is. She has a number in her head, the exact balance left in her savings account, and it is smaller than she has ever let it get. She is 28 years old, and she is holding herself together by a method so practiced and precise that from the outside it looks like calm. It is not calm. It is architecture. It is the thing she built instead of asking for help. Caden Ashby does not explain himself to people. Not because he is arrogant, though he can be. Not because he does not care what people think, though he has trained himself to care less. But because he learned a specific and irreversible lesson at 32 years old that changed what he believed about access. The lesson was this: the people you explain yourself to most freely are often the ones who deserve that access the least. He grew up in Boston, private schools. His father was a civil engineer who believed the quality of a foundation determines the height of everything built above it. His mother ran her own architecture firm out of a garage office for 20 years before it became a real firm with real awards on the wall. She taught Caden that competence speaks for itself and that feelings, while real, are best processed quietly. He was a careful student of both lessons. He built Ashby Capital at 26 with his college roommate, Marcus Vane. Caden did the strategy and the analysis, the long game thinking. Marcus did the client relationships, the handshakes, the charm offensive that turns cautious institutional investors into committed ones. For 6 years, it worked perfectly. The firm grew from 2 desks in a midtown sublet to a full floor on Park Avenue. The reputation grew. The client list grew. The trust between the 2 of them and between the firm and the world grew. Then in the spring of Caden's 32nd year, he found something in the quarterly reconciliation that did not add up. A small discrepancy, not the kind that triggers automated alerts, the kind that requires a human being who is paying close attention. He was paying close attention. Marcus had been redirecting funds from the firm's smallest accounts. Not dramatically, slowly, a fraction of a percent, distributed across enough accounts to be invisible in any single audit. By the time Caden traced the full pattern, Marcus had moved $4 million into offshore accounts over 18 months. Caden called him. Marcus did not answer. Marcus never answered again. The legal process took 2 years. Caden sold his West Village apartment. He worked without salary for 18 months. He called every single client personally to explain exactly what had happened and exactly what he was building instead. He did not manage the narrative. He did not soften it. He told the truth in plain language, and then he told them what he was doing differently. He won back 82 of 97 clients. He rebuilt the firm into something better and cleaner and more controlled than it had ever been. And then he stopped letting anyone close enough to the center of the operation to do what Marcus did. He knew this was wrong. He knew it in the abstract, understood that the math of it was not as clean as he was pretending. He just could not make himself act differently. The night he argues with Sloane on the plane, Caden has been awake for 22 hours. He flew to Los Angeles for a meeting with a portfolio company showing liquidity patterns he does not like. He flagged them. His team reviewed the data and did not see what he saw. He is flying home with the particular unease that comes from knowing something is wrong and not yet being able to prove it to anyone else. He is reviewing that data when the woman in 12B tells him he is on her half of the armrest. He has a brief thought, which is, "I do not have time for this." And then she opens her mouth about trailing indicators, and he has a completely different thought. She is right. She is precisely, uncomfortably, specifically right. And she is doing it without notes or setup, out of nothing except the obvious evidence that this is simply how her mind works. He argues with her for 18 minutes because he is genuinely interested and because it has been a very long time since anyone pushed back at this quality. When she falls asleep, he opens a new tab on his MacBook Pro. He types in a phrase she used, a very specific phrase, not standard in the field, the kind of phrasing that comes from original thinking rather than textbook recitation. One result comes up. A peer-reviewed working paper from 18 months ago, cited 3 times. The author is Sloane Merritt. He reads the abstract. Then he reads the whole paper. He is somewhere over Kansas, and the cabin is dark, and she is asleep in the seat beside him, with her head tilted slightly toward the window. He closes the tab. He opens the folder again and goes back to the liquidity data. But he does not uncircle what he circled in the margin of the second page. 3 days after the flight, Danica called in a favor. She had a paralegal contact at a firm that handled corporate work for Ashby Capital Group. There was a short-term contract opening, 6 weeks. A financial analyst needed to review incoming acquisition targets. Good daily rate. Firm was known for being selective. Danica said, "You should take it." Sloane looked at the number in her savings account. She said yes. She prepared the way she prepares for things that matter, which is thoroughly and without sleep. She researched Ashby Capital's public portfolio history, their stated investment philosophy, every press mention available, every quarterly letter that had been made public. She put on the charcoal blazer, the one her mother bought her for NYU graduation. She saves it for the important ones. She arrived 7 minutes early at the Park Avenue Tower, a building of glass and dark steel that reflected the November sky back at itself. The lobby was marble and quiet. The elevator to 14 took 12 seconds. The receptionist offered coffee. She took it. She sat in the waiting area looking out at Manhattan through floor-to-ceiling glass and told herself she was ready. The assistant opened the glass door and said, "Mr. Ashby will see you now." Sloane picked up her portfolio and walked in. The office was large, books on one wall, A long conference table to the left, floor-to-ceiling glass on the far side, the same Manhattan view from a higher angle. He was standing at the window, back to her, on his phone. He said, "Give me 1 minute," without turning around. She stood and waited. Then he turned. 5 seconds. They stood in the office and looked at each other and did not speak for 5 full seconds, which is a very long time when both of you are pretending it is completely normal. He looked exactly as he had on the plane, minus the jacket, plus a Mont Blanc pen he was holding, as if he had forgotten it was there. She looked exactly as she had on the plane, plus the charcoal blazer, plus the sharp awareness that she had told this man his analysis was wrong at 30,000 feet and was now standing in his office seeking employment. "Ms. Merritt," he said. "Mr. Ashby," she said. The silence stretched 1 beat past professional and landed somewhere else entirely. "Sit down," he said. Not unkind, not warm. Simply direct, the way a man speaks who has stripped courtesy of its performance and kept only its function. She sat. He sat across from her. He opened her file. She watched him read. The room was very quiet. He turned to the second page, and she saw it. Small. The kind of thing most people would miss. A slight change in his focus, as if something on the second page required a different kind of attention than the first. He did not comment on it. He asked her 4 questions about her methodology. She answered each one precisely and without hedging. At the end, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I would like to offer you the contract." She had not expected that sentence. She had expected a polite referral to a more junior firm. "When would you need a decision?" she asked. "I need it now," he said. She held his gaze. "Yes," she said. He named the daily rate. She kept her face still. The rate was nearly double what she had been charging. "Your first assignment package will be ready Monday," he said. "I will be there," she said. They stood. They shook hands. The professional handshake of 2 people who have absolutely no idea what they are doing. She took the elevator down to the lobby, walked out onto Park Avenue, stood on the sidewalk in the November cold for exactly 5 seconds, and then called Danica. "He hired me," she said. Danica was quiet for 2 seconds. Then, "Of course he did." Loud enough that a man walking past on the sidewalk looked over. "Stop shouting," Sloane said. "I will shout as much as I want." Also what was on page 2. "I do not know," Sloane said. "You need to find out," Danica said. "I am going to find out," Sloane said, and she meant it. She started on a Monday. The 13th floor of Ashby Capital was where the analytical work happened, open desks and monitor stacks, and the constant low sound of keyboards and quiet calls. Her workspace was clean and efficient. A desk near the window, a direct line to the server, a monitor already set to her credentials. No personalizing. 6 weeks. She could do 6 weeks. On the first morning, she was in the elevator when he stepped in at 14. He glanced at the printed portfolio she was carrying. "You printed it," he said. "I read better on paper," she said. "We are a paperless office," he said. "I will recycle it when I am done," she said. "That is not the point," he said. "Then what is the point, Mr. Ashby?" she said. He looked at her for exactly 1 second. "Welcome to Ashby Capital, Ms. Merritt," he said, and stepped off the elevator. The doors closed. She stood alone for the remaining 2 seconds to 13 and thought, 6 weeks. She could do 6 weeks. She opened the first acquisition target file that morning. The company was called Callaway Logistics, a mid-size operation out of New Jersey seeking expansion via private equity. Standard on the surface. She went deeper. By Wednesday afternoon, she had found 3 things that did not add up. A filing discrepancy in quarterly revenue reports from 18 months prior. A cluster of related party transactions that were disclosed but structured to minimize their visibility. And something in the asset valuations that she could not yet name but felt wrong in the way a wrong number feels wrong when you have been doing this long enough that your instincts have data underneath them. She wrote it up. Clean, clear, documented. Sent it to Jerome, her direct supervisor, a solid analyst of 4 years who had a steady and careful way of working that she respected immediately. Jerome read it, looked up, read it again. "I am going to send this upstairs," he said. "If you think it warrants it," she said. He sent it. On Friday morning, she was at her desk with oat milk coffee from the deli on the corner when she heard footsteps in the corridor. Not Jerome's measured pace. Faster and more deliberate. The kind of footsteps that know exactly where they are going. She looked up. Caden was standing in the opening of her workspace. Dark suit, professionally neutral expression. "The Callaway filing," he said. "Yes," she said. "You are confident about item 3, he said. Not a question, but she answered it like one. "I am certain about item 3, she said. He looked at her for a moment. Then he nodded once, turned, and walked back toward the elevator. That was the entire interaction. 20 seconds, if that. Jerome appeared at her elbow 40 minutes later, moving with the energy of someone trying very hard not to seem affected. "He came down here," Jerome said quietly. "Yes," she said. "Sloane." He paused. "He has not been on this floor in 4 years. Not once. Not for anything." She looked at her screen and said nothing. "I am just saying," Jerome said. "I am just saying that." She filed the information carefully and went back to the Callaway data. There was still something she had not found yet. She could feel it the way she always feels a wrong number, a pattern almost complete with one piece turned the wrong direction. She found it on Saturday morning at her kitchen table in Brooklyn, on her own time, because she could not stop thinking about it. She sent Jerome an update at 9:14 a.m. He replied in 6 minutes. "This is going to be a problem for the acquisition team." She replied, "It should be." The email arrived on a Tuesday at 4:47 in the afternoon. Subject line, "Attendance, per Mr. Ashby." 3 sentences. Her presence was requested at the Ashby Capital Annual Charity Gala at the Plaza Hotel on Friday evening. Formal attire. Details attached. She read it twice, then a third time, because the first 2 times had not made it make sense. She was a contract analyst. She was on 13. Contract analysts did not go to Plaza Hotel galas. She went to the stairwell and called Danica. "He invited me to a gala," she said. "Sloane," Danica said. "He requested my attendance," Sloane said, "which is professionally distinct from an invitation. I am going to need you to stop reclassifying obvious things into technical categories so you do not have to feel them," Danica said. "He invited you to a gala at the Plaza Hotel." "He came down to my floor once and asked about one filing," Sloane said. "He came down to your floor once in 4 years," Danica said, and her voice went careful and precise the way it does when she is making a legal argument. "He read your memo himself. He credited you on the upstairs report. He is now putting you in a room with his top clients and major donors. Process what is happening." "Nothing is happening," Sloane said. "It is professional." "Pull up the 48 Laws of Power," Danica said. "Law 16. Use absence to create respect. He has been cold and contained this entire time, and now he is switching. He is making you visible in a room that matters. That is deliberate." "You are projecting," Sloane said. I read people for a living, Danica said. Get a dress. Sloane did not own a dress appropriate for a Plaza Hotel gala. This was not a character flaw. It was a function of 2 years in financial recovery. Danica owned a deep green wrap dress bought on sale at a boutique near Bryant Park, worn once, and it fit Sloane as though it had been made for her. The green was the color of the Brooklyn Bridge in early morning light, cool and certain and quietly elegant. You look like you own the building, Danica said, zipping up the back. I analyze what goes in and out of the building, Sloane said. That is the same thing, Danica said. Different vocabulary. She arrived at the plaza at 7:08 p.m. The entrance was everything. The plaza always is. Marble and chandelier light and the low, elegant noise of 200 people who know how to inhabit a room like this. She scanned the space. She found him almost immediately, because he was the kind of person you find immediately in a crowd. He was near the far window, in conversation with 2 men in expensive suits, talking with his hands slightly, which she had not seen him do before. He turned before she expected him to, found her face across the full distance of the room, as if he had known exactly where she would be standing, as if he had been waiting. The evening moved the way galas move when you do not know many people. Careful orbits, polished surface conversation. She spoke with a logistics startup founder who turned out to be genuinely interesting. She met a woman named Vivian Hartwell, 50s, immaculate, who ran the non-profit Ashby Capital co-sponsored, and who looked at Sloane with the particular gaze of someone who files everything she sees. You are the analyst Caden brought in, Vivian said. Contract analyst, Sloane said. Short-term. He does not bring short-term people to galas, Vivian said. Perhaps he needed the numbers, Sloane said. Caden Ashby has never needed a body in a room, Vivian said. He is deliberate about who he puts next to him. She looked at Sloane with the expression of someone who has already arrived at a conclusion. He looked at you when you walked in, before you found him. We work together, Sloane said. It is professional. Of course, Vivian said, and smiled the smile of someone who does not believe that at all. Then the evening shifted. A figure appeared at the far edge of the crowd, blonde, tailored navy suit, laughing easily with a cluster of finance people near the window, moving through the room with the ease of a man who has spent years learning to look effortless in rooms exactly like this one. Preston Wolfe. Her champagne glass held very still in her hand. She kept her face arranged in the expression she had practiced over 2 years of professional reinvention. Calm, present, unreadable. He turned, found her face the way people always find the face they are already looking for. She watched it happen in under 2 seconds. The surprise, the recalibration, the engineered warmth clicking into place like a lock. He smiled. She did not smile back. She turned deliberately toward the logistics founder and asked him about expansion into the Pacific Northwest, a question she had no interest in. But it put her back to Preston and her face toward someone harmless. She was mid-sentence when she felt the presence to her left, not touching, just close. Close in the specific deliberate way of someone who has chosen that exact distance. Caden, you know him, he said, quietly. Only for her. Professionally, she said. Former connection. He has been watching you since he walked in, Caden said. I know, she said. You do not have to stay in his sight line, Caden said. And then he placed his hand at the small of her back. Light, brief, just long enough to guide her 2 steps to the left, out of the angle where Preston could see her face. 3 seconds. Then his hand was gone. She stayed in the conversation with the logistics founder for another 8 minutes. She did not look toward the window where Preston was standing, but she felt those 3 seconds for the rest of the evening. Later, in the back seat of the rideshare heading to Brooklyn, she sat in the dark looking at the city moving past the window. Her phone rang. Ashby Capital office line. She answered. "The Callaway Review," he said. "You included a footnote referencing an unpublished methodology. Where did that come from?" "It is mine," she said. "I developed it 2 years ago. It has never been published." "It should have been," he said. She did not know what to say to that. "I am reviewing it against 3 other case files tonight," he said. "I wanted you to know." "Okay," she said. "You will have my feedback Monday." "Okay," she said. A pause. She could hear the city behind him. He was still outside somewhere. "That man tonight?" he said. "Wolf. I have heard his name twice this month. He is pitching a methodology to a fund I know." Her chest tightened. "What methodology?" she said. "I do not have specifics yet," he said. "Caden," she said. His first name. She had not planned to use it. "Be careful what you do with that." "I am always careful," he said. "No," she said. "I mean, he took something from me and I handled it my way. I do not need someone else's version of that." The silence stretched long enough that she thought the call had dropped. "Understood," he said. She watched the bridge disappear behind them. "Thank you," she said. "For tonight. The thing you did. You did not have to do that." "I know," he said. And then he was quiet in a way that felt like the edge of something. Like a man who was about to say something true and had decided at the very last moment not to. The call ended. She sat in the dark with the city moving past and thought, what was he about to say? Monday came. She arrived at her desk at 8:45. A printed document was sitting on her keyboard. No cover page, no memo header. Just 12 pages paper-clipped with the Ashby Capital logo at the bottom corner. She picked it up. It was her methodology. Her entire unpublished framework, walked through page by page, annotated in the margins with cross-references to 5 real-world portfolio scenarios she had never personally applied it to. Caden had taken her work and tested it against 5 cases she did not know. In every case, the model held. At the bottom of the last page, in the margin, handwritten in the precise dark ink of a Mont Blanc pen, "This should have your name on it." She read it twice. She was still holding it when Jerome appeared. "Conference room," he said. "Mr. Ashby wants the full team." The meeting on 14 was about the Callaway acquisition. Her review had triggered a deeper investigation, and the target company was now formally flagged as high risk. Caden walked through the findings efficiently, credited the analysis without naming her directly. At the end, the room cleared. He held her back with a look. "Thank you," she said, and held up the 12 pages. "For what specifically?" he said. "The margin note," she said. He looked at it as if he had briefly forgotten he had written it, then back at her. "It is accurate," he said. "Not a compliment. A fact." She almost said what she was feeling. She did not. He put a second document on the table. "This came from a contact at Meridian Fund," he said. "They received a methodology pitch last week. The consultant was named Preston Wolf. The model is called the Wolf Dynamic Risk Index. I reviewed it this weekend." He slid it across the table to her. "It is yours," he said. Not gently, not harshly. Simply the truth delivered plainly. "I know," she said. "We need to decide how to proceed," he said. "I decide," she said. "Not we." He held her gaze. Something in his expression shifted, small and specific. "Fair," he said. She picked up the Meridian document and read the first page slowly, her own language, reworded just enough to create legal ambiguity. her own logic, restructured just enough to obscure the source. 2 years of her work. She set it down. She had imagined this moment, in the abstract, driving home late, lying awake. She had expected to feel something large and sharp. What she felt instead was something simpler. Decided. "I want the record corrected," she said, formally. "With my documentation, my name, my timestamps. Not as a revenge move, as a fact." "That is doable," he said. "And I am the one who does it," she said. "Not your legal team, not you. Me." "Yes," he said, immediately. She pulled up her laptop and opened the file folder she had never once deleted. Every version, every timestamp, every email chain showing the development of the model over 3 years. She had kept all of it. She had always known, at some level she had never looked at directly, that this day might come. She had been ready before she knew she was ready. "Tell me what right looks like to you," he said. And that was the moment she understood something about Caden Ashby. He was not going to take this from her. Not the decision, not the process, not the thing that was hers. He was going to stand in the room with her. That was all. And it was, she realized, more than she had expected from anyone in a very long time. She told him the whole story that night. Not in the office. They had ended up at the River Cafe in Brooklyn, neither of them entirely sure how. Something about the meeting running long and neither of them having eaten, and him saying there was a place near the bridge if she was heading back to Brooklyn anyway. The River Cafe was quiet on a Monday. Dark wood and candlelight, and the Brooklyn Bridge lit through the window over the water, its cables tracing the particular geometry she had always found reassuring, the way a proof is reassuring. Everything in its right place, holding exactly the weight it is meant to hold. She ordered the salmon. He ordered coffee. She looked at the menu, looked at him, and he registered without her saying anything that she was not going to let him pretend he was not hungry. He ordered the lamb. She told him about Preston, about the model and the investor presentation found on a laptop 3 weeks before a wedding, about calling off the engagement, about calling the investors who already believed the other version, about the Saturday move and the Sunday couch and 2 years of rebuilding, client by client, line by line. She did not perform it. She said it the way she had learned to say true things, cleanly, without requesting a particular response. He listened the way he always listened, completely still, fully present. No sympathetic outrage, no questions designed to demonstrate that he was paying attention. He was simply there, in the way that certain people are there, which is entirely. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. "You made the right call fast," he said. "Most people spend a year making excuses. You saw what it was and you left." "That is not quite a compliment," she said. "It is accurate," he said. "I do not deal in quite." "Tell me about Marcus Vane," she said. Something moved in his face. Small. She saw it. And then he told her, the same way she had, plain and documented. The embezzlement pattern in the quarterly data. The phone call that was not answered and never answered again. The sold apartment and 18 months without salary and 97 phone calls, one by one. "How many called back?" she asked. 82, he said. "That is a high rate," she said. "I did not hide it," he said. "I told each of them exactly what happened and exactly what I was doing differently. People can absorb a mistake. What they cannot absorb is being managed." She looked at him across the table in the candlelight. "That is why you came down to 13, she said. "What do you mean?" he said. "Jerome said you had not been on that floor in 4 years. But you came down to check my item 3 yourself. Because you needed to know that what you were seeing was real and not managed. He was still for a moment. "Yes," he said. She picked up her wineglass and held it without drinking. "I have a rule about trust," she said. "What is the rule?" he said. "That it is expensive," she said. "You do not extend it before you have confirmed the return." "That sounds exhausting," he said. "It is," she said. "It is also the only reason I'm still standing." He looked at her across the table. "I have the same rule," he said. "I know you do," she said. "Does that change anything?" he said. She thought about it. Really thought, not the quick defensive calculation she usually runs. "Not tonight," she said. "Ask me again in a week." He nodded. He did not push. He did not perform patience to get more. He accepted the boundary the way someone accepts a fact because it is a fact. And that, she realized, was the thing that moved her most. Not the 12 pages. Not the hand at the gala. This. They stayed until 10. They talked about Boston and Cincinnati and color-coded notebooks and engineering fathers and what it means to love numbers the way other people love stories. When she left, he walked her to the car without trying to extend the evening. She sat in the back seat as the car crossed the bridge and looked at the city and thought, "I have not felt like this in a very long time." She did not name what this was, not yet. But she was not running from it either. That was new. 2 days after the River Cafe, Preston Wolfe walked into Ashby Capital. Not for her. She told herself she was certain of that. He had a meeting arranged through a mutual industry contact. A prospective client introduction. Jerome flagged it in the morning log because Sloane's name was on the Callaway file, and any overlap with the methodology question was worth noting formally. She heard about it at 9:14 a.m. Preston was on 14. She was on 13. She did not go upstairs. She worked. She answered emails. She reviewed the secondary target in her assignment queue. She did not look at the elevator bank. She did not look up when she heard the bell indicating a car had arrived on 13 at 11:30. She heard the footsteps before she saw the face. Too quick. Too loose. The particular confidence of someone who has always moved through rooms without wondering whether the room wanted them. Preston Wolfe appeared in the opening of her workspace. Navy suit. Relaxed and entirely comfortable, as if the space were a room he had been specifically invited into, rather than one he had simply walked through. "Sloane," he said, like running into someone at a coffee shop. "Preston," she said. "I had no idea you were here," he said. "Yes, you did," she said, evenly, without heat. It was simply true. He had seen her at the gala. He had processed that information. He was here now. The idea that he had no idea was a courtesy she was not extending. He paused, a very small one, and then the smile appeared again. "Fair enough. How are you doing? Getting back on your feet?" "I am working," she said. "Good for you," he said, glancing around the space. "Caden runs a tight operation. Very impressive setup. You landed well." She set her pen down. "I did not land," she said. "I built a reputation and followed it here. Those are different things." "Of course," he said. "I did not mean anything by it." "I know," she said. "We should catch up sometime," he said. "Coffee. We are professionals. It has been 2 years." "I do not think so," she said. He smiled the third smile, the one he uses when he has run out of approaches and is packaging the retreat. "Take care of yourself, Sloane." He left. She sat very still, 30 seconds. She counted them. Then Caden appeared in the opening of her workspace. He looked at her. She looked at him. "How long were you in the corridor?" she asked. "Long enough?" he said. "Long enough for what?" she asked. He walked in. He sat across from her. The space was small, and he was a significant presence in it. He looked at her the way he looked when he was about to say something that mattered. I canceled his meeting, he said, 10 minutes before it was scheduled. She stared at him. You canceled it? Yes. You did not have to do that. I know. He was not here because of me. He had a legitimate meeting arranged through a contact. He had a meeting, Caden said. Whether it was legitimate is a question I decided I was not going to spend time on. That is not how business works, she said. I know that too, he said. She looked at him for a moment. Then why? He held her gaze, and she watched something happen in him, the careful practiced neutrality and the controlled surface and underneath it. Something that was finally tired of being controlled. Because I wanted to, he said. Simply. Without drama. Like a man who has decided that honesty is less expensive than management, even when honesty costs something. She did not know what to say. He stood. Finish the secondary target review by Thursday, he said. Jerome needs the full package by end of week. He moved toward the opening. Caden, she said. He stopped. Thank you, she said. He nodded once and was gone. She turned back to her screen and picked up her pen and looked at the data in front of her for approximately 30 seconds without actually seeing any of it. Then she thought, I am in serious trouble. And she meant that in the best possible way. She found him on 14 at 9 in the evening on a Thursday. She had stayed late to finish a data memo, and when she stepped off the elevator to drop a folder at Jerome's desk, she saw the light still on in Caden's office through the glass wall. She almost kept walking. She stopped. She knocked on the actual door, the one with a frame and a handle. Come in, he said. He was at his desk, jacket folded over the back of the chair, MacBook Pro open, Manhattan spread behind him through the glass wall, fully lit, doing its endless, irreducible thing. You are still here, she said. So are you, he said. She walked in and sat across from his desk. Not because she had a specific reason to, because it felt like the right thing. Can I ask you something? She said. You have never asked permission before, he said. Do you trust anyone? She asked. Fully. Right now. He thought about it. She could see him actually running the honest calculation rather than retrieving a prepared answer. Not fully, he said. Jerome with the team dynamics. My attorney. The data. The data is not a person, she said. The data comes from people, he said. The quality of the data tells me about the quality of the person. That is not an answer, she said. No, he said. It is not. He looked at her across the desk. The office was very quiet. I am working on it. She looked back at him. Me too, she said. They sat in the lit office above Manhattan for several minutes without talking. She was aware of the city below, the constant motion of it, and of how still this room was in contrast. Two people who had both learned that stillness was safer, sitting in the specific silence of people who are deciding, without saying so, whether safer is still what they want. What made you hire me? She asked. Actually, not the professional answer. He looked at the desk for a moment, then up. The paper, he said. The one I found on the plane. I read the methodology and I recognized how the mind worked. Not just sharp, precise and honest. Those two things together are rarer than they should be. You looked me up on the plane, she said. Yes, he said. While I was asleep, she said. Also yes, he said. She held back a smile and did not entirely succeed. That is mildly alarming, she said. I am aware, he said. And the second page of my file, she said, in the interview. What was on it? He was quiet for a moment. The timestamp on your published paper, he said. It predated the methodology Wolf had pitched to two funds in our network. by 14 months. She absorbed that. You knew when you hired me, she said. I had a strong suspicion, he said. And you did not say anything, she said. It was not my information to deploy, he said. It was yours. She looked at him across the desk. The lamp between them was warm. Outside the glass, November Manhattan moved and lit and did not stop for anyone. You are not what I expected, she said. What did you expect? He said. A man who uses information the way most men in your position use it, she said. As currency. Information is currency, he said. The question is what you spend it on. She stood. I should get home, she said. He stood too. Good night, Miss Merritt, he said. Sloane, she said. He paused. Good night, Sloane, he said. She walked out, took the elevator down, stepped onto Park Avenue into the cold, and looked back up at the building once. The 14th floor was lit up bright behind the glass. She thought, I am going to have to make a decision about what I actually want, not what is safe, what I actually want. She was not quite there yet, but she was very close. The article was published on a Thursday morning at 6:48 a.m. She saw it at 7:54, lying in bed in the Brooklyn apartment, still half asleep, phone screen bright in the dark room. A financial news site, smaller than the majors, but read by the people who matter in the industry. The kind of publication fund managers have on their phones. The headline was about emerging risk methodologies in private equity. Preston Wolf was quoted 3 times. His photograph was above the fold. The Wolf Dynamic Risk Index was described in language she recognized word for word. The diagram in the sidebar was hers. She sat up. She read it twice. She put the phone face down on the nightstand and sat with her hands in her lap for 30 seconds, looking at the wall. Then she picked it up again and read it a 3rd time, slowly, the way she reads things that are going to require action. Every lifted phrase, every redrawn diagram, every piece of her work now in print under another person's name, in a publication that fund managers actually read over their morning coffee. By 8:12, Danica had texted, "Call me now," in all capitals. By 8:30, Sloane was on the subway. By 8:58, she was at her desk. At 9:15, Vivian Hartwell called Caden directly. Vivian had seen the article at breakfast and recognized the methodology from a working paper she had read 18 months ago. She knew whose work it was. At 9:45, a journalist emailed Sloane's personal address requesting comment. She did not respond. At 10 o'clock, Caden appeared in her doorway. He walked in and sat across from her. He put his hands flat on the desk in front of him. "What do you want to do?" he said. Not, "What do we do?" Not, "Here is what legal recommends." Not, "I have already made some calls. What do you want to do?" She had been thinking about the answer since 7:54 a.m. "I want the record corrected," she said, accurately and formally. "I want my documentation submitted to the publication and to Meridian Fund and to every other fund he has been pitching this to. I want my name on my work. Not as revenge, as a fact." "That is doable," he said. "And I am the one who submits it," she said. "My voice, my documentation, my name on the letter." "Yes," he said, without hesitation. She opened her laptop and pulled up the file folder she had maintained for 3 years. Every version, every timestamp, every email chain, the original model in 17 successive drafts. She had never deleted a single version, not one. She had always known, at some level she had never examined directly, that this day might arrive. She had been ready before she knew she was ready. "I will have legal set up the formal meetings," Caden said. "Your timeline, your call on when?" "Friday," she said. I will be ready by Friday. I will be there, he said. You do not have to be, she said. I know, he said. I will be there. She did not argue. The meeting was on a Friday morning. A glass conference room on 14, Park Avenue, traffic visible 11 floors below through the window. 7 people in the room. Caden's legal team on one side, Preston and his attorney on the other, a representative from Meridian Fund, a contact from the news publication who had agreed to participate in a formal fact-finding session before making editorial decisions. Sloane sat at the center. Her documentation was in a clean binder that Danica had organized the night before. Working at the kitchen table until midnight, with the precision she saves for the cases that actually matter to her. Every version, every timestamp, every email chain in sequential order. The meeting lasted 2 hours. Preston's attorney tried twice to reframe the situation as parallel development. 2 people working in a similar space, arriving at similar conclusions. The timestamps made this difficult. The email chains made it impossible. At one point, Preston looked at her directly across the table and said, "Sloane and I developed this together. She knows that." She looked at him. "I know what I built," she said. "The documentation knows it too." He looked away first. At the end of 2 hours, the Meridian representative stood. The publication contact stood. Preston's attorney stood. His client followed. At the door, Preston stopped. He did not turn all the way around. He spoke toward the glass. "You always had to be right," he said, quietly, like it was a flaw of hers that had inconvenienced him. "Yes," she said, "and in this case, I was." He left. The room was quiet. Caden, who had been present for 2 full hours and had spoken exactly once to clarify a procedural question from the legal side, caught her eye across the table. She had expected, when this moment finally came, to feel something large, triumphant, the specific satisfaction of watching someone be proved wrong in front of witnesses. What she felt was smaller than that and better. Clean, settled. Like the thing that had been pressing quietly against her ribcage for 2 years had, at last, let go. She looked at the binder on the table. Her work, her name. In the same room, undisputed with witnesses. She picked it up, put it in her bag, put it in her... She looked at Caden. "Thank you for being here," she said. "I said I would be," he said. That was all. That was everything. Her contract ended on a Friday. The acquisition project was complete. The Callaway deal was declined. The methodology documentation case was moving through formal channels, outcome favorable, timeline ongoing. Jerome shook her hand on Thursday and said she was the sharpest contract analyst who had come through 13 in his 4 years there. He meant it. She could tell because he said it plainly, without performance. She packed up her desk that Friday afternoon, the charcoal blazer from the back of the chair, a coffee cup she had somehow kept for 3 weeks without meaning to, the printed Callaway portfolio she had never recycled. She said goodbye to the receptionist, took the elevator to the lobby, walked out onto Park Avenue. She was standing on the sidewalk, coat on, bag over her shoulder, about to decide which direction to walk, when she heard her name. She turned. Caden was on the sidewalk. No coat. Shirt sleeves. November in New York, which means 37 degrees and a wind coming off the park. He had come down immediately, before he could reconsider, before he could collect himself or think of a reason to wait. "You left?" he said. "Contract ended," she said. "I know," he said. She waited. The city moved around them, cabs and pedestrians, and a delivery truck making a slow turn, and none of it was relevant. "I would like to offer you a permanent role," he said. "Is that why you came down?" she asked. A pause. Brief. honest. "No," he said. "Then say what you came down to say," she said. He looked at her. Caden Ashby was not a man who fumbled. She knew that about him now. He was precise in everything. His analysis, his language, the way he moved through space. But standing on the sidewalk in November in his shirt sleeves, something in him was unresolved in a way she had not seen before. Something that had been held very carefully for a long time and was finally, carefully, running out of room. "I would like to try," he said. "This, whatever this has been. I want to find out what it actually is." She looked at him. She thought about the investor presentation on a laptop 3 weeks before a wedding. She thought about the 12 pages and the handwritten margin note. "This should have your name on it." She thought about the River Cafe and the bridge and the quiet office at 9:40 and the 3 seconds at the gala and the phone call that almost said something. She thought about the man in 12A who argued with her at 30,000 feet and looked her up while she was asleep and hired her and came down to 13 and canceled a meeting because he wanted to and stood outside right now in November without a coat because he was out of reasons to wait. She stopped thinking. "Okay," she said. "But I am still recycling that portfolio." Something happened in his face, small and definite. The expression of a man who has been holding something for a very long time and has just, carefully, put it down. "That is fair," he said. She reached out and gave him the portfolio. He took it. She would find it later in the recycling bin on 13, exactly where it belonged. She looked up at him in the cold. "You should get a coat," she said. "Probably," he said. Neither of them moved for a moment. Then she smiled. A real one? And he smiled back. There on Park Avenue in November, in the ordinary Tuesday traffic of a city that does not pause for anyone. Two people who had both learned the hard way that trust is the most expensive thing you can offer. Another person looked at each other and decided to try anyway. 3 weeks later, the financial news site published a correction. 4 paragraphs, buried as corrections always are. Not on the front page, but findable by anyone who looks. The Wolf Dynamic Risk Index was identified as derived from prior work by independent analyst Sloane Merritt. A timestamp discrepancy had been established. The original developer had been confirmed. Preston Wolf's pitch to Meridian Fund was withdrawn. Not in a press release. That is not how these things end. It ended in an email and a retracted handshake and a room that went quiet in the way rooms go quiet when the thing that was supposed to happen is not going to happen. The market has a long memory for these things. Sloane read the correction on her phone at 7 in the morning at her kitchen table in Brooklyn, with coffee still hot enough to be worth drinking. She did not feel triumphant. She felt settled, clean, like something had finished. She texted Danica. "It is done." Danica replied in 14 seconds, "The king is dead. Also pick up oat milk on your way home." Sloane laughed. An actual unplanned laugh, the kind that comes from somewhere real. She thought about something from Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, the copy she had owned since college with the creased spine and the highlighted margins. The idea that justice does not require your participation in the noise. It only requires that you hold to what is true. The noise works itself out. Preston had not lost because Sloane fought him. Preston had lost because the truth had better documentation. She had simply made sure the documentation was available. She got ready for work. She had a permanent role at Ashby Capital now. An office on the 14th floor, the one next to Caden's that had been empty for 2 years. Her name was on the building directory. She had typed it in herself on the form the building management sent and had felt something small and complete happen in her chest when she hit submit. She and Caden had dinner again at the River Cafe on a Sunday. He ordered the lamb. She ordered the salmon. Neither of them mentioned that this was exactly what they had both ordered the first time. The Brooklyn Bridge was lit through the window. The conversation moved between work and childhood, and Boston winters and Cincinnati summers, and what it means to love something as precise and honest as numbers. "You were still wrong about the trailing indicators," she said, somewhere near the end of the evening. "I adjusted my position," he said. "That is not the same as admitting you were wrong," she said. He looked at her across the table, the real smile, the one she had been counting. "You were right," he said, "about the indicators, about how to handle Wolf, about the portfolio. Recycle it." "Thank you," she said. "Do not make me say it again," he said. She reached across the table, not dramatically, not as a declaration, just her hand, resting in the space between their plates. He looked at it. He turned his hand over, palm up, and let her decide. She decided, here is what this story is really about. Sloane Merritt spent 2 years rebuilding herself after a man took her work and called it his. She did not do it loudly. She did not post about it or perform her recovery or wait for someone to acknowledge what had been done to her. She worked. She documented everything. She held to what was true even when the truth was in a folder on a cloud drive, and no one was looking at it. She could not control Preston. She could not control the investors who believed him, or the 2 years of hard rebuilding, or the red-eye home from a canceled meeting, or the man in 12A, who turned out to be the one who read her work and said, "This should have your name on it." She could only control the quality of what she built and the integrity with which she held it. That is the whole lesson. Not just for Sloane, for anyone who has ever been told their contribution was supportive, for anyone who has rebuilt from someone else's choice to take what was not theirs, for anyone who has wanted to be in a room and wondered if they belonged. You belong. The timestamps say so. And eventually, not on your schedule and not the way you planned, the record corrects itself. Hold to what is true. Do the work. Let the noise do what noise does. Everything else follows. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. We have another one coming very soon. Subscribe so you do not miss it. And so the story closes. But before I let you go, if you are still here with me right now, I want you to know something. That means this story touched something real inside you. And I think I know what it is. Because Sloane's story is not really about a plain argument or a job or a man who came downstairs without his coat in November. It is about something Marcus Aurelius said over 2,000 years ago in Meditations. And it still hits just as hard today. He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Sloane could not control what Preston did. She could not control who believed him. She could only control the quality of her work and the integrity she kept, even when no one was watching. That is the whole lesson. You do not need the room to agree with you. You do not need the validation before you do the work. You just need to keep going, document the truth, and trust that the record eventually corrects itself. If that hit you somewhere real today, share this with someone who needs to hear it right now. And if you want more stories like this one, stories about women who stayed standing when everything tried to knock them down, hit that subscribe button. We have another one coming for you very soon. We will see you there. This is a work of fiction created purely for entertainment and emotional storytelling purposes. All characters, names, events, businesses, and situations in this story, including Sloane Merritt, Caden Ashby, Preston Wolf, Ashby Capital Group, and all related settings, are entirely fictional and the product of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to real persons, living or deceased, or actual events is purely coincidental and unintentional. This story does not represent, depict, or report any real individuals, companies, or incidents. The Stoic quotes and philosophical references included are used for inspirational and narrative purposes only. All financial and investment scenarios described are fictional and should not be interpreted as professional financial advice. This channel is dedicated to bringing you original, emotional, healing stories designed to entertain, inspire, and uplift. Thank you for watching and for being part of this community.